What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here with as many reviews as possible, and today we're reviewing the Foost Fitness lifters. Alright guys, so I know this review is a long time coming. Foost Fitness had actually contacted me a lot earlier in the year and asked me to review their lifters, but when the shoes released, they had a lot of issues keeping up with the supply of the shoes, and my order got pushed back and back and back. But Foost finally came through and they sent me a pair of their brand new canvas lifters. Now personally, I really like the look of the original leather lifters, but the canvas is a new fresh idea, so I thought I would go with these ones instead. I think the canvas models look pretty good and I do get a lot of compliments on them, but when you get a little bit closer to the shoe, you'll notice that the canvas that they're using is not the highest quality, and it shows all of these ridges really fast after using the shoe. There is a single lateral strap that extends all the way over the shoe and is made of leather, but once again, that looks cheap as well. It doesn't feel like it's gonna fall off or anything, but it's a little bit flimsy. There's a brown piece of TPU that extends all the way around the shoe, in which Foost calls their C-frame. And what that does is it basically cups your foot into place and gives you more lateral stability throughout the shoe. The heel, of course, is made of wood and is the highest heel on the market at a 32.5 millimeter or 1.28 inches effective heel. The wood actually has a really interesting look to it, but once again, the quality of the finish of the wood is not the greatest. There are some divots here and there, and there are some parts that look almost like the wood kind of has a little bit of rot in it. The outsole of the Foost lifters is a pretty plain looking rubber outsole, but does a really good job with grip. The insole is removable and is about 3 or 4 millimeters. It's actually pretty cushioned for an Olympic weightlifting shoe, which is actually pretty nice to have. One of the best parts about the Foost lifters is just how much cushioning they have around the ankle collar of the shoe. There's a lot of cushioning, especially in the Achilles area of the shoe, and the tongue is really nicely padded. The shoelaces, nothing special. On the website it shows rope laces, but you actually just get plain black laces with your Foost lifters. Now if I had to say anything negative about the Foost lifters, it's just that the quality of the materials that they use for this shoe are just not that great compared to some of the other pairs of weightlifting shoes that cost $200. But considering that Foost does all their manufacturing in Brazil and gets all their materials from Brazil, it makes it a little bit easier to forgive the quality of materials of the Foost lifters. If you're looking for a wide weightlifting shoe, then the Foost lifters are definitely going to be the one for you. These are probably the widest pair of weightlifting shoes that I have ever used. The toe box is extremely open and spacious. There's plenty of room for your toes to splay. The midfoot of the shoe is basically just flat, and there is no kind of arch support on this shoe at all. The slope from heel to toe is very gradual and feels very smooth. When sizing your Foost lifters, I'm gonna say just go with your normal weightlifting shoe size. They fit almost identical to all of the other size 9.5 weightlifting shoes that I own. So while the quality of materials of the Foost lifters is not all that great, the performance of these shoes is the exact opposite. These are some of the most rock solid, stable lifting shoes that I have ever used. The ultra wide base makes for some of the most sure landings in the Foost lifters. The C-frame actually does a really good job of holding you in place when you land or when you're just squatting. Responsiveness is excellent. The forefoot is flexible enough for most jumping movements and split jerks. Of course, the heel is not compressing anytime soon because it is a solid piece of wood. The grip on these shoes is phenomenal on rubber flooring or wooden platforms. It's really easy to move your feet around in the Foost lifters because of just how flexible they are and how responsive they are. In the past, I've had trouble cleaning with higher heeled weightlifting shoes. Because my lat mobility is not the greatest, I end up getting pitched forward, but that is a lot easier to deal with because of the forefoot stability of the Foost lifters. Snatching, however, is extremely rock solid. In the Foost lifters, I am able to catch with an extremely vertical torso, which leads to greater success rates for me. Now, most people are going to gravitate towards the Foost lifters because of mobility reasons. The higher heel is going to enable you to sit deeper into your squats without requiring as much mobility. But the higher heel also enables you to engage more of your quadriceps through the first and second pull. If you have issues keeping your toes down, then the higher heel is definitely something you're gonna wanna look into. Honestly, I don't notice a huge difference between most weightlifting shoes when it comes to squats, but I do have to say that these are probably my preferred squatting shoe right now. I can sit back further in these shoes, and that enables me to use more of my glutes and my hams, and I'm a fairly quad dominant lifter. So now I've brought some of the most popular weightlifting shoes on the market along with me to compare to the Foost lifters. The first comparison we're gonna make is between the Romoleo 2s and the Foost lifters. The midfoot of the Romoleo 2s is a little bit wider. The forefoot of the Foost lifters is wider. The length is pretty much spot on. The heel of the Foost lifters is wider as well. The Romoleo 2s have a 3/4 inch heel and are a little bit lighter than the Foost lifters. The next comparison is with the Leistung 2s. The midfoot of the Foost lifters is wider, the heel is wider, the forefoot is much wider. The length of the shoe is slightly longer than the Adidas Leistungs. The weight is pretty much identical between these two shoes, and of course the Adidas Leistungs have a 1-inch effective heel. The next shoe is the Legacy lifters, and the forefoot of the Foost lifters is much wider than the Legacies. The midfoot is about the same. The heel of the Legacies is slightly wider. The length of the Legacies is definitely longer than the Foost lifters, and the weight of the Legacy lifters is definitely heavier, and these have a 3/4 inch effective heel height, or 0.8 inches. The next shoe is the Nike Romoleo 3s. The forefoot is wider on the Foost lifters, of course. The midfoot is interestingly more wide on the Romoleo 3s. The heel is about the same thing. The length is pretty much spot on, 3/4 inch heel, and these are definitely the lighter shoe. Next is my personal favorite, and that is the position lifters. The heel is definitely wider on the Foosts. The forefoot is wider, the midfoot is wider. The Foosts are just way wider than the positions. The length of the positions is slightly shorter. The positions also have an effective 1-inch heel, and the weight is a little bit less than the Foost lifters. The next shoe is one that I rarely pull out, but I feel like these ones are closest in feel to the Foost lifters, and that is the Anta weightlifting shoes. The heel on the Foost lifters is wider. The forefoot is also wider. The midfoot on the Antas is wider. The weight of the Antas is definitely heavier. I don't think anyone knows what the exact heel height is on the Anta lifters, but it feels the most close to the Foost lifters. The last shoe that I have for comparison today are the Do-Win weightlifting shoes. The heel is definitely wider on the Foosts. The midfoot is just about the same. The forefoot is a little bit close, but I'm gonna give it to the Foost lifters. The weight of the Foost is definitely heavier than the Do-Wins, and the Do-Wins also have a 3/4 inch effective heel height. Now, all the specifications in the world wouldn't mean a thing if you couldn't lift in the shoes. I personally thought I was not gonna like the Foost lifters because of just how high the heel was. In the past, I just didn't have the greatest luck lifting with higher heeled weightlifting shoes, but the Foost lifters ended up being one of my favorite weightlifting shoes that I've tried all year long. If you can get past the quality of the materials of the Foost lifters, then you'll end up with one of the most rock solid stable weightlifting shoes that money can buy. If you have mobility issues, then the Foost lifters are going to be a no-brainer. Foost is still a relatively young company, and they definitely have some things to fix about their weightlifting shoes, but I still think they are a great pair of lifters, especially if you have issues with mobility. If you guys have any questions about the Foost Fitness lifters, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.